Morning, everybody. Kids, you are dismissed. If you are a kindergartner through fifth grader, you can go where that kids' hallway is. Jonah, you're always so good at leading the way. I want to see some adults running into the church like that one day. Just your head back, going, looking at the ceiling, and just running in. Well, if you're joining us this morning, I wanted to say welcome. My name is Pastor Angela, and I'm one of our pastors here at Mountain Christian Center. I don't speak regularly, just occasionally, so if this is your first time, you got to come back and hear Pastor Terry and Pastor Cody. But this morning, I just wanted to share with you how encouraging our church is. Fred, one of our youth, knew that I was speaking today, and he's like, yeah, I'm just going to try not to fall asleep. And then I was sitting in Henry's spot, and I said, oh, Henry, I'll move because I'm going to be on the stage anyway. And he's like, you mean we got to listen to you again? And then, it's not over. It's been a busy morning. Then I'm sitting over, worship is about to start, and Keith tells Gina, I hear the preacher's kind of sketchy today. So that's how my morning, we have a very big group of encouraging people here today, so welcome. We're happy you're here. No, our series has been in 1 John, and I am continuing with that series. My passage today is 1 John 3, 1 through 10, and today's message is called, Who is Your Daddy? Are you guys ready for that today? Anyone want to know who's your daddy? Remember that back in the 80s or whatever? Oh, Journey even remembered. Okay. Also, another little thing to let you know is I am using an iPad for the first time while I speak. I usually have paper notes, but we were planning, and Cody's like, wait, you bring paper? And I said, yeah. He's like, no, but you bring paper up for your notes. And I was like, yes, I use paper, then I can write on it or whatever. He's like, get with the 21st century. So this is my effort in doing that, but I also want you to know that I also brought paper just in case. So I'm ready on both angles here, but I'm going to give it a go. So I grew up not in a traditional home. What's traditional nowadays? But I grew up in a non-traditional home. We never really sat down together, had meals together. That really wasn't my experience. It was a lot of like, will there be food tonight? I don't know. I certainly made up for those days, but that's kind of how I grew up. It was just, I remember one time there was literally potatoes and ketchup and mustard. So I went into the kitchen, that's all that we had. So I made the potatoes on the little stove the best I could, and I put ketchup and mustard on it, and that's what I ate. I remember sitting outside eating in a little Tupperware bowl. That's what I was eating. Another time, I don't know if any of you remember, but back in the old days, they used to have government cheese. Anybody know what government cheese is? Yeah, my fellow people. Anyway, they used to have government cheese, and it would be like this block of probably like 1% actual cheese. And it would be wrapped in this, I can see it as clear as day. And if you remember what it was, you can too. It was wrapped in this plastic wrap, and it was like a brick like this. Think of Velveeta, but bigger. And it had blue writing on the plastic wrapper. Well, one time I remember it was me and my cousins. We were living in a hotel at the time, and it was both sets of our parents and then us three at the time in a hotel room. And I remember we had the government cheese and ketchup. I don't know why we always had condiments around, guys, but we did. So I remember we literally cut the pieces of cheese, and me and my cousins were sitting against the wall eating the cheese with the ketchup. Not a bad combo if you're wondering. But anyways, that's kind of more of what my experience was. So it kind of caused me to grow up sort of with the mentality of like I would go to church and I'd be kind of on the outside looking in at the table that was set, looking in at the families that were kind of set, and knowing that I really didn't belong there because this is where I was. And I kind of want us to keep that in mind this morning as I begin to unpack our message. I want us to have that sort of picture in our minds. So as we begin, I want to read our passage today. So if you have not read your Bible today, I'm going to read you 10 verses, and this will count for you. This is 1 John 3, 1 through 10 in the NLT version. See how very much our Father loves us. For he calls us his children, and that is what we are. But the people who belong to this world don't recognize that we are God's children because they don't know him. Dear friends, we are already God's children, but he has not yet shown us what we will be like when Christ appears. But we do know that we will be like him, for we will see him as he really is. And all who have this eager expectation will keep themselves pure just as he is pure. Everyone who sins is breaking God's law, for all sin is contrary to the law of God. And you know that Jesus came to take away our sins, and there is no sin in him. Anyone who continues to live in him will not sin. But anyone who keeps on sinning does not know him or understand who he is. Dear children, don't let anyone deceive you about this. When people do what is right, it shows they are righteous, even as Christ is righteous. But when people keep on sinning, it shows they belong to the devil, who has been sinning since the beginning. But the Son of God came to destroy the works of the devil. Those who have been born into God's family do not make a practice of sinning because God's life is in them. So they can't keep on sinning because they are children of God. So now we can tell who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other believers does not belong to God. Encouraging, right? So this morning, I want us to figure out who is our daddy. The first question we have to ask to know that answer is, who do you look like? Who do you look like? Have you ever seen how they say that spouses grow older together and then they start to look like one another? Have you guys heard that? Or sometimes people even say that about dogs. And I hope they don't say that about my dog because he has a really long nose. But they say that like eventually the dogs look like their owners, or the husband begins to look like the wife. We can see this very prevalent in siblings that look like their parents, like the Ellis kids. There is no doubt that Steve is their daddy because they look just like him. There's no question about it, right? So if I were to go into, say, a San Francisco Giants versus Dodgers game, and when you go to the game, you're going to see people in their garb. They might have their faces painted, they're going to have hats on, they're going to have jerseys on, they're going to have the shoes on. Some people might even paint their stomachs with the logo of the team, but they're going to be representing who they belong to. So me, if I go to the game, I'm naturally going to be wearing the San Francisco Giants gear, right? Am I right? Yeah. And when I go to the snack bar to get the nachos, because I will, the guy at the stand isn't going to be like, so what team are you cheering for today? Because he's going to know who I belong to. And I feel like this passage is kind of essentially giving us this same outline, like who do you belong to? Who do you look like? Who are you representing? And I feel like this passage is essentially asking us that same question. If you follow the devil, this is what you're going to look like. If he's your father, this is what you're going to look like. And if you follow God, and this is what your life is going to look like. It's kind of giving us that message there. And in 1 John 3:2, it says, "Dear friends, we are already God's children, but he has not shown us yet what we will be like when Christ appears. But we do know that we will be like him. For we will see him as he really is. And as children of God, we know that we will look like him." One commentary that I read, in fact, titled this passage of scripture, verses 1 through 10, "The Spiritual Paternity Test." So it makes sense. Has anyone ever, again, back to those ghetto roots, you're welcome. Did anyone grow up watching Maury Povich? Remember Maury Povich? Yeah, I see you guys know. Okay. He was famous. He's like a step above Jerry Springer. Anyways, but when I grew up, I didn't have TV restrictions, so that's what I was watching. But he was famous for, the results show with a 99% certainty that you are the father. Or it shows that you are not the Father. And no matter what the results, everyone was shocked, and it was like a trashy show, but it's basically the same thing here. It's like, look, based on how you live, based on how you look, the results are, this is who your father is. This is who your daddy's is. Well, in order to know this answer, we have to ask ourselves, who do you live like? Who do you live like? Now, it's very easy. It's kind of a downer in some places of this passage, but it's very easy to look at it and say, oh my goodness, if I sin, I'm a child of the devil, and that's all there is, and I've sinned 37 times today, and it's not even 12 o'clock. What am I going to do? And so we can kind of get caught up in that. After all, in verse 6, it says, anyone who continues to live in him, being Jesus, will not sin. Anyone who keeps on sinning doesn't know him or understand who he is. And when we read that, it's really easy to go down this dark road of, oh no, that must mean that I'm not a child of God. We see in verse 8, it says, but when people keep on sinning, it shows that they belong to the devil who has been sinning since the beginning. But the Son of God came to destroy the works of the devil. And we say, well, isn't the very reason that Jesus came to come to forgive us so that we can be children of God? And the answer is yes. And yes, that is why. We have to continue to read on a little bit in the passage to see what the author is really saying. Verse 9, it says, those who have been born into God's family do not make a practice of sinning, because God's life is in them. So they can't keep on sinning because they are children of God. So being a child of God does not mean you are sinless. If it did, we're all not in a not good place. Being a child of God does not mean you are sinless. It means you sin less. So all the perfectionists out there can relax. It doesn't mean you're sinless. It means you sin less. You're not making a practice of sinning. What does practice mean? It means the customary, habitual, or expected procedure or way of doing something. Your habits, your customary habits, are not that of sinning. They are that of trying to sin less. We are being changed. We are being molded. We are being refined. So we are changing, and it means that we sin less. But the very first thing, and I would say the paramount thing, the most important thing that we have to ask ourselves in order to know who is your daddy is this: who do you love like? Who do you love like? So who do you look like? Who do you live like? And now who do you love like? In verse 10 it says, so now we can tell who are the children of God and who are the children of the devil. Anyone who does not live righteously and does not love other believers does not belong to God. You have to love. I put it up here on the screen because I loved it when I was studying the commentary, reading about my passage so that I could understand it and know what I wanted to communicate to you. One commentator I read put it like this, and I wanted to read it to you because I liked it so much. The author then, and by that he's meaning the author of 1 John, the author then is not stressing absolute moral conformity or sinless perfection, but the one requirement by which all other requirements are measured: love for one's brother. For this there is no substitute. Its violation allows for no excuse. Its application permits no compromise. Here there are no gray areas, no third possibilities. One either loves his brother and proves he is God's child, or does not love his brother and proves he belongs to the devil. I don't even think, and I would argue, I don't even think that it is possible for us to read the Bible in its entirety and not see the value and importance that God puts on loving one another. In fact, it's imperative to being a child of God. Who do you love like. In Matthew 22:35-40, it says, one of them, a lawyer, asked him, being Jesus, a question to test him. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And he said to them, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend the whole law of the prophets. John 13:34, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. Like that commentator said, this is not a suggestion. There is no gray area in this. This is what we must do. If God is our Father, if we look like our Father, this is what we must do. And I've had people that have chosen to love me. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because it's not like, of course I love you, you're my brother. It's not like that. It's deeper and richer. And I want to draw our attention back to our table here. And I want to look at it. For a lot of you in this room, you know that Gina and I met in college, and we have been friends for about 26 years. Well, the first time some of our college friends went, we came to Oakhurst to visit, and I thought it was amazing. I loved it here. Now I live here, so I loved it. But it was so funny, because when I was leaving on that first visit, I had met her parents. I don't know if I met Keith on that visit, because I think he was in college. But I was there, and her dad, when we were leaving, he said, I'll put the adoption papers in the mail. Like joking that he was going to adopt me. And I don't think he knew just how true that would actually become over the course of the 26 years. You see, some time ago, my mom passed away. It's been 18 years now, and that's when I first moved up here. And the Pagets and Riches invited me to be family at their table. This wasn't a formal invitation. I'm just saying by the way they treated me and invited me in. They invited me in to be a member of their family and to sit at the table with them. But remember what I told you in the beginning. I'm kind of on the outside looking in. And for years and years, that's how it was with them. Even though they invited me in, for years and years, I would feel like I don't belong there. There would be so much shame, and they don't have government cheese, at their table. I allowed myself to be a guest at the table, but I would never allow myself to fully come in and be part of that family, even though the invitation was always there. The way that the invitation looked, well, when I needed tires, when I first moved up here, Eric bought me tires. When I needed a pad cut out for my property so I could have a home here, Keith cut out my property pad. Not my property, my pad. It looked like praying for me when I had decisions to make. It looked like hugging me when I was crying because I had a surgery that I had to have, picking me up from the hospital. It looked like cultivating a habit of those are the first people I call when I want to celebrate something and when something bad happens. That's what that constant invitation looked like. But I would never allow myself to go fully in, because I'd always be like, no, I don't really belong. And I would tell myself all of the reasons I don't really belong there. I don't belong there because there's so much shame that comes with me because of how I grew up. And it's just, those aren't my people. That's not, I just don't belong there. And I would look inside and I would judge all the things and all the reasons, and I would make up all these reasons why I didn't have a place at the table. And I did it for years. Even though I was always invited, in my own heart, I kept a distance. And finally, over a season of time, I realized, I was like, you know what? I really do think I want to sit at this table. I don't want to be a guest at the table. I mean, they're saying I can come in. I really do want to. But I'm on the outside looking in. And over a season, it dawned on me. The door I had a door up here, but I couldn't open it, so it wasn't going to work. But the door was locked on my side. I was the one keeping myself out. It wasn't them keeping me at a distance, it was me keeping me at a distance. Well, once I allowed myself to come to the table and be a permanent person at the table, it looked a little different because I got here and I saw I'm not an afterthought at this table. You see, they were planning for me at this table. The seat was already reserved for me at this table. My stocking was hung already with this family. They considered me family, but I didn't allow myself. And once I came in, it was like my favorite drink is on the table. My name is here. My seat is reserved. I belong here. And when you say, hey guys, like you're part of my family, they're like, yeah, duh. What took you so long? I don't know where you are this morning, but I also realized through the course of, I would say the last couple of years, the Lord has been doing this same thing in me. Where I realized I'm invited to his table too. And I grew up going to church, and I was always there, and I was still always on the outside looking in, even though I was always there. And we did this study in my ladies group a couple years back, and one of the, it was on the Trinity, and we were going over the Father. And one of the questions was, go on this 10-minute walk and pray and ask the Lord to reveal to you what lies you're believing about him being your Father. And I realized the lie I'm believing is that you don't have good for me. You have good for everyone else, and you're a good father for everyone else, but there's that distance again. And in the Lord's grace and in his kindness, he revealed that to me, and he's drawing me in, inviting me again to his table. Because it was shame that kept me from his table too, and that made me feel like I don't belong fully at his table either. And this table is the table of the family of God where you all sit. You all sit at this table. You're all invited to this table. But I want to tell you what it's like when you come to this table with all of you that's the family of God. We have to love one another at this table. We have to. It's not a choice. If we are children of God, and 1 John says, the very first verse, you are children of God. We have to love people at this table. And when you come, and when I come, and we sit at this table, let me tell you what it's like. People will hurt you at this table. People will disappoint you at this table. People will have pride at this table. People will have fear at this table. People will struggle at this table. You will have to forgive people at this table. And do you know what else? When you come and when you sit at this table, you will disappoint people at this table. Your own pride will hurt other people at this table. And you will have to be forgiven by the other people at this table. When we love one another, that is part of what we're signing up for as children of God. It's not a perfect place because you're not perfect and I'm not perfect. So you're sitting across from other people who have pride and greed and sin just like you do. And they have to make allowance for yours, and you have to make allowance for theirs, and you sharpen one another, and you grow together. But do you know what else is true about this table? You will be encouraged by people at this table. You will be celebrated by people at this table. You will be valued by people at this table. And you will be loved by people at this table. See, it's a far bigger and different thing to post a Christian meme on your Instagram versus wrapping your arms around someone in their mess and saying, come and sit at the table with me. Let's do life together. This is the very thing that Jesus tells us that causes us to be different than anyone else. Remember, John 13:35 says this. This is what Jesus says. By this everyone will know you are my disciples, if you love one another. By this is how people will know you belong to me. This is how people are going to know you're a Giants fan. By your love for one another. I want to invite the worship team up. I want to invite the prayer partners to go to the side of the building. I said in the beginning, I titled this message, Who is Your Daddy? Partially because it's funny and I like to be funny. But I want us to ask ourselves, who do we look like this morning? Who do you live like this morning, and who do you love like this morning? And from the very beginning of this message, I felt like this is for us. 2 different times in this passage, the author says, you are children of God. This is not you can be. This is not if you would just do this, you will be. He calls us children of God. That is who we are. And if you have found yourself being a child of God, coming to church and looking outside, looking in, and if you have allowed your shame to keep you out, if you've allowed your pride to keep you out, if you've allowed the fear of what other people might think about you sitting at the table because you don't belong there, I want to tell you, it's so much better at the table. It's so much better at the table. Even though you're sitting there with messy people just like you, it's so much better than the outside looking in. And you are invited in. And I promise you, once you let yourself go there, you will see that God, your Father, has always been planning for you. He's always had a place for you. You've always, always belonged. Don't let anything ever keep you from coming to that table. Our final verse this morning, I want to go back to the very top. See how very much our Father loves us, for he has called us his children, and that is what we are. Let's stand and worship together.